Okay, we have quorum, so I think we'll go ahead and start and hope that Jeremy, Nadeem, and Shabnam join us.
Yeah, give me a minute. Let me get that live stream going.
Okay,
Hopefully it behaves today.
looks like we're good, David.
Yeah, we are good to go.
Alrighty. Well, I'd like to call the meeting of the Public Health and Safety Committee to order. It's Thursday,
Move,
September.
move approval of the minutes.
We're not quite there yet, Bill. Um,
We'll be
it's
there.
7:03 p.m. Uh, take a I see we have with us, I don't know if we need a formal roll call, but myself, Bill, Rob, Jim, and David, and we are awaiting Jeremy, Nadeem, and Shabnam. David, has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you. I do have a procedural question before we go to the approval of the minutes. Any comments or corrections on the minutes? Does that come before we vote to approve the minutes or after we approve them and go into the discussion period?
Or
Before? Okay. Then I'd like to make one correction to the minutes. On item 10, DOT Safe Streets for All initiative, I want to give credit where credit is due. The first sentence says Mr. Stanky brought the grant information to Mr. Falk's attention. It was actually Mr. Rogers. So I just wanted to make that correction, David.
Okay, we'll do.
And with that, I would ask if there's any other corrections or comments regarding our agenda, previous agenda. Hearing none, we vote to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye, or raise your
I
hand.
think I think we have to have a motion first. So I'll move that we approve the minutes with the correction that
need a,
you've noted here,
need a second.
and then we
And
need a
I'll
second.
it. I don't
Anybody
care.
would like to second?
I did. Bill did.
Bill does. Okay, thank you, Rob, for helping me out here. Robert's Rules of Order. I flunked that test way back. Okay, now we have a public comment period. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to say anything? We have Mary Fish on the line. Mary, would you like to say something?
I would. Can you hear me
Okay,
okay?
I can. Go right
I
ahead,
attended
please.
um, I attended, my address is 1501 Edge Hill Drive. I attended the Lake Mendota meeting last week. And I just want to say, we got to do something about Edge Hill. It's, the conduit for 3 parks. The speed is always close to 30 to 40. I mean, you can just tell they're flying. And then we've got, my husband and I actually count between 4 and 7 o'clock. And there's anywhere from 120 to 160 cars. So we have volume. And they're going fast. And there's only a little white line dividing pedestrians from the street. So, and there's no sidewalk. I sent some suggestions to Rob about ways we could do some inexpensive calming. But I mean, it's just so dangerous, and we're on the other side of the hill at Wood. So there's that, but it's really more than that. We would never see a police presence, never. And we've been here a year, we never see the police. We've seen the speed thing up once, and that's a calming device. People slow down when they see the speed, warning thing. So we don't really even get an accurate idea. But we're just here to plead our case. We're sick and tired of it. We're sick and tired of the lack of enforcement. It's so unsafe. I invite anyone to our home to witness what we see all the time. I mean, there's just nothing being done, and I don't understand it. Our neighbors say they just gave up. They just gave up. So we're not giving up just yet. And I guess that's all I want to say. I'm going to keep pushing.
Okay, Mary. Well, thank you for your comments. I will tell you that this is an issue that is appropriate both for this committee and Public Works. Rob is the chair of Public Works and is also on this committee. As I mentioned, I believe you were there the other night at the town hall concerning Lake Mendota Drive, as I mentioned, and we'll talk a little bit about tonight. We're hoping that with this Safe Streets initiative that we might be able to get some funds to be able to address some of these things. And so I would say stay tuned, and we are conscious of this. We're trying to do what we can from a committee standpoint, and your message is heard.
I appreciate that. I just hope we don't wait for a big study and keep prolonging it. There's things we could do tomorrow in terms of getting the police to do something. We could add a stop sign right at Wood and Edge Hill. There would be so many reasons to consider that, even a three-way. So those aren't things that are going to require long-term studies or much money. Those resources are available now, but I am excited about the extra money that you've gotten. So I want to say on the positive side, I'm happy to hear about that.
Yeah, well, we heard it about the stop sign, and I think everybody that heard it thought it was a great suggestion. But we need to, obviously talk to the police about it. We need to, look at it and see what the consequences from all different points of view are on that. So
And if I
hopefully
may,
it's something we can do quite soon.
hey, this is Scott Fish, and if I may, and you mentioned about talking to the police about, if I make just a quick story, when we first moved in here, a tree had gone down across Edge Hill from Coldwood Woods, and they had police cars kind of blocking traffic in both directions on Edge Hill. I had walked out and met the police chief at that time, and nice enough guy, and just said, yeah, I've been in communications with your wife, Mary, and I know she's concerned about this kind of being a blind hill, and adding that stop sign up at the corner. And as soon as we got done, less than 10 seconds after that conversation, and it was being taken place in the middle of the road because the squad cars were flanking the tree that had gone down. Here comes from over top of the hill a car, slams on his brakes. There was snow. It was snowy out. He almost hit the squad car. And I looked at the police chief and I said, case in point. And all he did was kind of chuckle. And another example was, fast forward to the spring, I had a mulch delivery in the front of our house and had safety cones placed around it. And within, less than 4 hours, not one, but two cones were hit by cars and dragged down towards Lake Mendota Drive. Another story, fast forward to summer, I was out in the yard, and a little girl on her bike driving down, kind of wiped out in front of our house, was crying for help because she was all tangled up in the bike. I came racing, so did Mary, from the house to untangle her and basically get her out of the road, because thank God there was no cars. I can't believe they weren't coming at that time. because they always are, but she would have been run over, without a doubt, she would have been run over. So that's my 2 cents.
We're done and we appreciate you listening.
No problem. We're doing what we can, and I can promise you we'll continue to work on this.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see anybody else. David, do you see anybody else from the public who might want to speak?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Then we'll move along. Okay, item 6. I wanted to mention that we now have an ad hoc committee led by Carol Barford. This issue came up. It's one that I think that could have easily fit into this committee or in personnel. And Carol has taken the lead on that and formed an ad hoc committee, which is membered by 3 of our members, myself, or 4 of our members, Nadeem, Shabnam, myself, and Rob. Are you on? You're on it, Rob, aren't you?
I haven't heard anything final about that.
Oh,
I did
no,
off-
I misspoke, but we are looking for one more person. So if you say yes, you can be on that committee too. Anyway,
Okay.
as we all know, that it's a real concern with our police force trying to retain people. The pay has we don't pay as much as we probably should to retain and keep police officers. And so this committee has been formed to try to address that. And I just might mention a few of the things that were discussed at the meeting. Carol came up with what she calls a mental model to try to get us started and recognize that there's a national crisis in policing, that qualified candidates are scarce, wages are rising, that our village is small, and so we suffer from sort of economy of scale as far as, you know, being able to have programs or protection that larger cities have. For example, you know, larger cities might have a what do you call I'm drawing a blank on the people that the police that go in force with a like into a bank to with guns to
like SWAT.
SWAT team. Yes, thank you. We don't have not that we really need it, but the point is that there are sort of police subunits that we aren't able to accommodate because of our size. Our Shorewood wages are much lower than our surrounding peers. As a result, we have high officer turnover. We have frequent overtime because we don't have enough officers. So those that we do have need to work overtime. It's been hard on morale. We have a loss. The consequence of all this is a loss of 24-hour coverage, which I think we have suffered from that to a certain extent. No other agency to do contract policing. That's something that some people have said that, well, we'll just contract with Madison. And that seems to be I don't know if it's an urban myth out there or there's truth to that. That's something within this committee that we want to investigate and find out what the fact is. But it seems to be the opinion of our police that Madison is not interested in contract policing, and it may, in fact, they may not be able to, not just from a personnel standpoint, but from the fact that they're not authorized to be able to police in a different municipality. So there's some of those things that we're looking into. And of course, if we went with another agency, what would that cost and how would that affect our service? And of course, the the last sort of consequence potentially of any of this, if we risk having inefficient police protection in our village, or potentially losing our force, and what happens to that? Do we become part of Madison, or what will happen? So this is sort of what we talked about in this committee, ad hoc committee. We've had one meeting this past week. As I said, we're looking for a seventh member, for somebody that might be interested in joining that committee. We are meeting at noon on, I think it was on Tuesday, so it's a daytime thing. So that's what I have from that committee. Is there anybody have any comments or issues regarding that they would like to discuss?
Bob,
Yeah,
I'd be
Bill.
willing to, I'd be willing to be on the committee, and I've been a member of the police department in this community.
Okay, I will let Carol know. I don't make the decisions, but I will pass that on to her.
Very good.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Item number 7. I wanted to bring you up to date on this Safe Streets for All initiative. I did include in the packet the submitted proposal. So it's been a couple months. As I mentioned earlier, Jim brought this to our attention, and I looked into it. And this again is a grant through the Biden's infrastructure bill and the Safe Streets for All $5 billion 5-year initiative, and we're 3 years into it. There were 2 ways a municipality could apply. They could either apply on their own, or they could apply as a group through what's called a municipal planning organization, of which we have one in the Greater Madison area, the Greater Madison Municipal Planning Organization. So we teamed up with them, along with Fitchburg, Verona, Cottage Grove, and Dane County. I think that's the list. And so as you saw in the materials, the total grant's over $1 million. We've asked for 150,000. And it's required in this grant to, you can't just start on construction projects. First, you have to establish a safety plan. And so year 1, we've asked for the 150,000. I'm sure that'll cover development of a plan, hiring of a consultant that will help us develop this plan. I think it's going to involve having town halls and probably maybe the formation of an ad hoc committee if we get the money to focus on this. And the results of that study will hopefully tell us from the residents, like we've heard from the Fishes, where some of the issues are, and then look at ways that we might fix those. And then in the subsequent years, we can apply for the actual dollars to do the construction or do the installations that will help solve those problems. So if we do get the money, and the people at the MPO seem very optimistic that we will get this money, that will mean next year we would likely start working on this plan, starting getting input, documenting this. And along with that is the opportunity to do some demonstration projects that the DOT allows you to try things out and see how they work. I've used the example of temporary speed bumps. So for example, one of the suggestions at the town hall the other night was on Lake Mendota Drive, put speed bumps. Well, it'd be a huge investment to do that permanently, and where do we put them, and what's most effective? Perhaps under this program, we could buy temporary speed bumps, put them up, try them out, monitor the traffic. Also look at how it changes the traffic behavior, but also where the traffic ends up going. You know, how you, whenever you put traffic calming in, people are going to change behavior. They're going to find the quickest route around it. And so we have to be cognizant of that. We don't want more folks, you know, suddenly driving in front of the fishes, for example. But we have to look at how we can balance that out. So I think that this type of study offers this opportunity and flexibility to try out some things that otherwise may require hard dollars. You know, we have to put in something concrete, which may or may not work. So again, the village is paying 20%. We had to commit to that amount, so we committed to $30,000 to be able to get the 150, but seems like a good deal to me to pay 20 cents on the dollar to hopefully address some of these issues. And there's many other areas I think that are worthy of investigation. Rob had brought up, and we've talked about Locust Drive and how to correct some of the issues there with bikes and hopefully put in a you know, maybe a single bike lane or a dual bike lane that would isolate the traffic from the bikes, because there's been some near misses. Actually, I think that whole intersection at Shorewood with the train and how to get bikes through there is probably an area that could use some investigation as well. And those are just a couple of examples, but hopefully that's what we're going to collect when we talk to the public and talk to our engineer and talk to the consultants. Strand is one that would probably be involved, possibly. There's others, but they know a lot about traffic related stuff. So that's what I have on that, and I would open it up for any discussion or comments from the rest of you. Go ahead, Jim.
Just great job with being able to move so well forward with this. It's just great to see if there was a discussion, and I'll look at this Village of Sherwood Hills as part of this, and that the potential may be incredibly beneficial for having that infrastructure money to go help. Great job and follow through.
Well, thank you, Jim. If it hadn't been for you and you're going to the meetings or having the connections you have, we wouldn't have known about it. I mean, some of these opportunities, they're out there, but they're hidden in the weeds, and it's not always obvious, especially for a small municipality, whether or not we can even get involved. So kudos to you as well for bringing it forward. Any other comments? Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, I'll just say, thanks to Jim for pointing this out and for finding this originally. And Bob, you've done most of the heavy lifting on this. And so, yeah, we're very, very grateful as a village for everyone who's been involved in this process and getting it going. And what you were saying reminded me of something that might be of interest to this committee or to the residents in general. As we're thinking about safe streets, there is a really nice tool that is from the state of Wisconsin, and it's linked on the sh-pd website. So sh-pd.org is our police website. And I believe the section is under crash reports or incident reports. There's a link that links out to the state website where it's essentially like a Google map where you can see over the last 25 years, all of the vehicle crashes that have occurred in an area, including Shorewood Hills. And it has really nice filters as well. So you can subtract out, or you can highlight just the ones that involve a pedestrian or a cyclist or a driver who's over the age of 65 or a teenage driver or a driver who's been inebriated. So you can look at all of this data. It's linked through our police website. And what's really nice about it is you get a clear picture of where some of the biggest problem spots are in the village, which isn't to say that, if a street has never recorded a crash, that it's not, that it's not dangerous. It might be dangerous, and we just have gotten lucky so far. But you know, I think as we're thinking about this as a village, as a community, how do we want to keep our streets safe? How do we want to enable our police to do their job well, to protect us? You know, this is a really nice tool to look at and get some ideas from. So,
Well, thank you for that info, Rob. As I mentioned, I think that this crosses over this committee to Rob's committee and probably sits more in Public Works. But I envision that if we get this money, it'll be a big enough project that we should probably form a ad hoc committee that we can have some of us that are interested from this group, as well as Rob and citizens at large, or, you know, we'll look at that down the road. But I don't want to count too many chickens before they hatch. Okay, next item, if there's no more comments. Rob, you're going to report from Public Works, the town hall meeting, which I referred to earlier, and with discussion on topics relevant to our committee.
yeah, so maybe for Jim and Bill's benefit, you know, we had a Public Works town hall very recently. It was primarily focused on some potential improvements to Lake Mendota Drive, which is something that the village has been considering for a very long time. And so we're kind of at this point where we have some ideas that we think might be beneficial to the community. And so we wanted to have a town hall about this and get some feedback. And of course, Public Works is, you know, mostly focused on the engineering of our streets, whereas this community, this committee, you know, police enforcement would tend to fall under this committee's radar. But as a part of that town hall process, a lot of the residents did speak out about enforcement. That was a major theme of the night. You know, obviously we were talking about speed humps and stop signs and all these sorts of things, but many residents were concerned at what they perceived to be a lack of enforcement in the village. You know, things like speed traps, or you know, just having a police officer parked on the side of the road with the radar gun, or watching certain intersections for people running stop signs and things like that. So so I think that was really helpful feedback for the board members who attended, as well as for our administrator, Brian Mooney. You know, obviously we as the elected and you know, the elected leaders, as well as Brian being our competent administrator, you know, having this sort of negative sentiment, you know, pretty widespread among the residents is not something that, you know, we want to hear. I mean, we do want to have that feedback, but we want to address that. We want to see what's going on. Why are people feeling this way? Is there anything we can do about it? So I just wanted to bring that report to this committee, just to say that a lot of residents really are concerned about what they perceive to be a lack of police enforcement. So this might be something that the committee wants to keep an eye on. I know that our administrator obviously takes this very seriously, and so this is something that he is going to be, you know, working on. You know, what's driving this feeling? Is there anything that can be done about it? I will say that also the SHPD posted on their social media accounts today that that residents can pick up signs that say "slow down" to put in their yards, and that the police also announced that they will be doing about a week or two, I can't remember the exact dates, of dedicated enforcement around the school. So I don't know if that's related to our previous meeting or if that's something they're already planning to do. But I think it's really important to highlight that the police are going to be doing some targeted enforcement over the next week or so. So so that's about what I had to say. I don't know if there's any comments or questions about the meeting. Um, so yeah, I'll turn it back over to Bob.
Well, thank you, Rob, for that update. Any comments? Okay, well, that was a good synopsis. I was at the meeting and it was very well run, and I thought we had a lot of good public input. As you mentioned, I think we need to have more town halls and
Mhm.
provide people more than just the 3 minutes of um, monitored time to be able to speak at these committee meetings. So next, item 9, fire EMS and police call review. Jim, do you have anything you want to share with us?
Yep, just very briefly is that in our last meeting, we had reviewed the quarterly report for the City of Madison Fire and EMS. That was for the period of April, May, and June. So the current July, August, September one is still in progress. And it's actually rather nice. We don't need to hit that every meeting. Rather, we'll catch that then at the subsequent meeting.
Okay.
And then we can probably look at a little bit more of a me commenting on the very good graph that David puts together for us. I didn't write up anything more for the Short Hills Police Department because our police chief does actually a very good job of simply summarizing this information. About the only thing that I'm always thinking of is I tend to be a visual person, and when you have like the full graph of the whole month, would there be a way of somehow just popping it into a spreadsheet that is immediately linked so we can just see trends or maybe even summaries of a few of the breakouts grouped together a little bit more, such as assisting EMS and fire and police, but it's a great report. Of course, the notable calls are just a fascinating read, and it incredibly reinforces the importance of our police department of simply being around. And whether it's an WI suspect for Madison hit and run, who we followed up on, returning a person with dementia back to their home. We're not even realizing that the person was out. We have our bluffs, we have our areas where somebody could go. It could be significantly different. My goodness, reading about the woman dragged and pinned under the boat trailer. I would be personally just curious to see how recovery has gone related to that. And then also the incredible highlights of 2024 of an officer being able to provide extra coverage for President Biden for the time in Madison, which all the municipalities are doing. I was intrigued to see that there was actually a case of business fraud that was also followed up on because I traditionally think of our police as purely physical action items involved and not necessarily, white collar crime type of items. But this one was reported upon. It always makes me realize, yeah, we probably don't know very much about all the rest of those calls. So I think I'll just turn it back to you, Bob, for others to comment on insights gained from our chief's very good report.
Yeah, I have to say that, well, first, thank you, Jim. Um, I, since I've started as the trustee, I read these reports every month, and it really gives me pause looking at those notable incidents that our police follow up on. And, they they respond to what, 600 calls a month, which is 20 a day. And, it's tough. We like to think of them sitting on the corner here in the village, but they've also got University Avenue, which is part of Shorewood Hills, and they have to deal with all the nonsense that goes on there. And so it's a tough one. And at the same time, we're struggling to retain the police, to hire police. Uh, the other thing that I would mention, I don't know if everybody's aware, but our police chief is retiring in December. And the board at the last board meeting, we brought this up and basically told Brian Mooney, our administrator, to go find someone and you know, do what you can to find a new police chief. And so it's up to him to probably won't come back to the personnel. I mean, informationally, part of it will come back, but we're giving a lot of the duty to our administrator to hire a new police chief. So that will be forthcoming. Yes, Bill.
Are we still precluding any officer that's currently a member of the department from moving into the chief's job?
We are not precluding that. That they will be out if we have someone
Okay,
qualified that wants to apply, they are open to do that. So it's
yeah,
how far Brian wants to go with a wide open, broad search, that's going to be up to him.
well, that,
Is that how you understood it, Rob,
Well,
in the board meeting? I don't want to misquote.
I haven't heard anything about a restriction preventing an internal candidate from applying. So I think, yeah, like you said, if there's an internal candidate who wants to be considered for the job, it sounds like they would be able to apply.
that'd be good. Okay.
Could you brief us just on the process of between now and actual selected individual being confirmed? For what you know?
Well, I think that the board, you know, we went through this governance process, or governance workshop, and one of the recommendations was that we should be relying on our administrator to do more of the hiring rather than it all going to a committee and going through some of that. In fact, one of the recommendations was that we should disband the personnel committee, and because it has such liability risk associated with it, by virtue of the fact that there are people on the committee, however qualified, you know, maybe they've had previous jobs in HR or whatever, they are not officials of the village, and there's a potential for problems in hiring as a result of that. And so I think that my sense, again, this is my sense from the meeting, is that the board sort of took the first point to heart and said, okay, Brian, you know, if you want to do a broad search or a narrow search, we're gonna hand this to you. If you need our help, need our input, then we'll certainly provide it. But so just what that, I'm sure that they'll send out a job search and collect applicants, and whether that'll be reviewed, whether Brian will come up with a advisory committee or advisory group team of some type, or whether he'll come back to the board, that's not clear to me at this point. And again, Rob was in the same room I was when this was discussed. That's how I interpret it.
I would
Yeah, I think. Oh,
go ahead.
okay, it's okay, but yeah, I'll just say one other thing. It does sound like under our current ordinances that we would the trustees would have to approve the hiring of the police chief, as with all of the department heads. So there would be a final check. It's not entirely Brian Mooney's decision, but as our government is currently organized, the trustees would have to approve that department head hiring. So,
Hey, Jim.
Thank you for explaining that well, and that does fit very well for how, again, having responsibility, accountability associated with it. I would suggest being able to give feedback, or at least being able to know what the process is so that others could comment on that process. I know it can be very beneficial to have oftentimes final candidates, knowing that there is the issue of confidentiality up until the very last moment, to be able to go ahead and actually uh, get have discussions with any type of small group to be able to get impressions, to ask them about their ways of doing it, and then that ends up being simply advisory feedback back to the selection, because you can get very useful feedback by having, let's just say, village residents who are concerned about traffic flow in this area, and they're actually assessing what does communication look like between a police officer or other individuals, simply of, well, how organized might you be in being able to accomplish items, or other people with simply what is your depth of background and skill, which our administrator might not have. Again, I just suggest that as advisory, but I would encourage that there's a review of what the process is, so that very knowledgeable people who have gone through many of the selection processes could give feedback back. I still like the selection method. Thanks.
Okay, very good, Jim. I probably said more than, it's kind of my interpretation, so please take it in that vein. I don't think that there's anything cast in stone, and I was just more trying to relay the tone of what I heard in the meeting. So, Rob?
Yeah, so good governance, in theory, the administrator should be responsible for making these hiring decisions, and ultimately, if that could include the administrator getting the kind of feedback from residents or experts in order to make a good selection. And the reason it's set up this way is the administrator is, if he makes a bad choice, that could have consequences for his employment, for instance. And ultimately, the administrator is accountable to the elected officials. So we want to have as much accountability through this process as well. And so we're tasking Brian to make a good choice. And however he does that, the kind of advice that he seeks, that's up to him. But my own approach, and I've had people come up to me who ask me about the police chief retiring, and I've said, please talk to Brian. Tell him what you want to know about our future chief. Give him feedback, and I myself, I had a conversation with Brian the other day where I said, speaking purely as a resident, these are the things I would want to know. These are the questions I would want to ask a candidate who's applying to be the chief of the village. And so I would encourage members of this committee, residents who might be paying attention to this meeting on Facebook or here with us tonight via Zoom, please do give your feedback to Brian. If you have, comments or questions, things that you want to know, things that you want to see in our future police chief.
Thank you, Rob. I will say, as chair of this committee, Jim's your concern about making sure that the process is open for review. I will share that with Brian and let him know that there's concern from the committee. I didn't really mean for this to be a topic, but that's okay. We've gotten some good feedback here, and feel free on your own, but I will approach him that the committee felt that the process, he should make that known to everyone before executing it.
Yep. And Bob, you brought it up after we finished up the very good police department reports from the police chief. So that's one of the qualities, we appreciate
Right.
it. We hope that there be a continuation of that. So it's very related.
Yeah, that would be one of the questions I would ask a candidate if I was on the committee. Okay, that was one thing I wanted to bring up. the last thing I wanted to mention, I think this might be a future. Was there any more on the fire EMS and police call review? Anything else there? No, okay. So, future agenda items. One thing I would like to add, David, is noise ordinance and enforcement. And I know we're not supposed to discuss this, but I will just give a very brief summary here. Residents have been complaining about noise in the village, especially as it has to do with heavy equipment on weekends and during construction. And so I wrote up some information, looked into this, did a little research on what different communities do. We're going to discuss this at the next board meeting. I actually talked to Brian Mooney today, and he said, I've been getting complaints about the mowers over on University and how it affects people on University Bay Drive, apparently starting early in the morning. We've got trucks rolling through in the village that are not supposed to be starting work until 7 a.m. and they're starting beforehand. So I think that our noise ordinance needs some looking into. I have read our noise ordinance. It's very technical, but in my mind, it's not very, it's not well written as well as it could be. And so I think this is something that we might be able to address in this committee. So David, I would ask you to put that in the future agenda items, and you can rattle that around in your brains and we can talk about it next time. Jim?
We have the continuous fire EMS and police calls monthly, maybe just for clarity, quarterly fire / EMS, and then whatever, comma, monthly police calls, just so that we know the timing on those two versus just continuous.
So would you like to address that on a bi-monthly basis, or do you want to do it, just leave it on the agenda and then bring the information when you get it on a quarterly basis? Or
Yeah, well, the quarterly only can occur quarterly, and it kind of messes up if you have to change it for what's standard. But if it says quarterly, then we just simply know that there is not a report. But I do have a question for our group of what is useful for us in being able to go ahead and see police calls. No, I like that summary page. I will glance at the many, many, many other pages, but I must say I don't give it more than 15 seconds review, because basically it's not in a graph form. I'm not going to look at the detail associated with it. So for me, I'm fine with just that single page or the single one or two pages that the chief does. But it's kind of a question for us. The other thing is, if we don't meet monthly, we're not seeing those on a regular basis. So then do we just want monthly reports since the last meeting? And that's what we look at? Question.
any thoughts? Go ahead, Rob.
So the question is, I guess the alternative is, do we look at just the previous month or do we look at the previous 2 months? Is that basically what you're saying, Jim?
Yep, since our last meeting,
Yeah.
depending how
Yeah.
frequently we meet.
Yeah, I would say we should be looking at whatever monthly reports have been generated since we last met as a committee. That would be my preference.
I would go with that, and I would just say simply the summary report. Skip the other detail. We could ask David for that if we individually wanted that, and then just the quarterly Madison Fire EMS or the quarterly Fire EMS report.
I guess, looking at, like, for example, this potential noise ordinance, I suspect what might happen, this is going to go to the board and then they're going to send it back to us to work on it. And so I'm wondering if every other month is appropriate, given that that may be a topic that's going to take a little time. I'm wondering if we shouldn't just plan to meet every month, leave the quarterly fire EMS police call, leave that as a topic on there, or maybe put in parentheses optional, or and we can always discuss it. If we have information, we have it. If we don't, we don't. And then, and also with the meetings, like last month, I just didn't have that much. I'm not one to hold a meeting if we don't have anything to discuss. It's real nice seeing all of you, but
It has been traditional without the summer or during the summer to reduce that a bit. So I appreciate that also. I also like where you place it on the agenda near the end. Therefore, if we're looking at our watch, we can simply say, here are a few highlights. Anything else, anybody? But I must say, I enjoy simply reading it in our packet. Whether or not we comment on each of the comments is less of a concern for me.
And I agree with you also on all of those data sheets I do the same thing. I just page through it and mainly look at the summary and the significant calls, and just to kind of track, what's our total calls every month and in what areas they're in, and to keep abreast of that. So I would say a more abbreviated report is probably all we need from my perspective.
Bill is waiting. Yep.
I think
Bill,
that
did you
if,
have something?
yeah,
Go ahead.
I thought that, I think that having just the numbers is interesting for a certain amount of just the busy part. But I thought that the notable calls for July was as a matter of our knowing more about the complexity and the amount of ability to make decisions or the required intensity of the decisions that our officers are responding to, or the activities they're responding to, is certainly helpful for us to know a lot more about what the pay scale means and what what sort of problems we're having versus hopefully not some of the problems that are in Milwaukee and some other communities. But some of these these just notable calls can be the precursor to a bigger call down the road. We need to, I think as a committee, it's helpful for us to know a whole lot more about the real doggone daily of what our officers are facing.
Thank you, Bill. I agree. This is why I've kind of been an advocate of, and one of the reasons I started writing those sort of safety tip things, and with the idea of putting some of the police reports in there. I think many of our residents just do not realize what our police are doing, and that they have this infinite free time to patrol our streets, which they're certainly trying to do. But when they have to deal with somebody with their seventh OWI, crashing into whatever, those are some serious things, and they're right at our doorstep. So, yeah, it's a hard one to balance all of this. Okay, any more for the good of the order? Would you like to meet October 3rd? Or do you want to go ahead and do that? And if we end up with nothing, then I'll give you a week's notice and we'll cancel the meeting.
I very much
plan on,
appreciate that. Yeah.
I plan on being on the road on October 3rd, and if I can get online, fine. But we'll be motoring down the interstate.
Okay. All right, well, we'll plan on having it. I don't want to change the date, Bill.
No.
So we'll plan on October 3rd, and if for some reason we end up with nothing to talk about, in the meantime, if you have some topics you'd like to raise, well, I don't know, what is the protocol, Rob? Maybe you know this, or David. Does it have to first be on a future agenda item before we put it on the actual agenda? Or can we, 3 days before, have a hot topic we want to discuss, put it on the agenda? Anybody know the answer to that?
It's up to you, Bob. If it wants to be, if someone wants it on the agenda, you can put it on the agenda or put
Okay,
it in the
well,
futures.
I'll go with that. Rob?
Yeah, so you as the chair control the agenda, so you can, make changes up until, a reasonable amount of time before the meeting occurs. This agenda setting process is for committee members to request a certain item be added to the agenda. And if we're doing this the same way that the board treats these future agenda items that are requested by members, what the expectation would be is that member who requested that future agenda item would follow up with the chair and be prepared to present that item. So there's an expectation that the committee member requesting that item
Right.
would sort of facilitate the discussion on that topic.
Okay,
So
well, that seems fair enough. I would like to keep it as, I want to follow rules, but I also want to not stifle discussion and people bringing up topics. And so I would say this to everybody: if you have something you want to talk about, just let me know, and or at least a few days out, and we'll get it on the agenda and talk about it.
And
Jim?
maybe just to further emphasize that you control the agenda like you're doing with the noise ordinance, take a look at our purpose statement. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is popping up in the village and this should be taken care of, or we should be discussing it. Then by all means, just grab it and shove it into our discussion.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, I think I talked about it enough. We'll know more next month about what we may or may not be able to do with that whole noise ordinance thing. But that's the only thing I see on the horizon. So with that, shall we adjourn? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Oh boy, the
Bill.
hands go up quick. Second? Rob? All right, everybody, thank you so much. As always, I appreciate your helping out in this committee and all your great input. Have a good one. We'll talk to you in October.
thank
All
you.
for leading.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.